Welcome, language lovers, history buffs, and curious minds. Today, we're diving into the fascinating, mysterious, and incredibly influential world of Old English, a language you may not realize has shaped much of the modern world. From epic poems like Beowulf to its subtle echoes in J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, Old English isn't just a relic of the past, it's a cornerstone of who we are today. In this video, we'll uncover the secrets of Old English, its sounds, quirks, and unique expressions. We'll explore how it evolved, influenced modern speech, and left its mark on culture, literature, and beyond. By the end, you'll understand why Old English is more than just history, it's living legacy. Before we begin, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on more deep dives into history, language, and culture. Now, let's embark on this linguistic journey. What is Old English? A brief overview. Let's start by clearing up a common misconception. Old English is not the language of Shakespeare. Shakespeare's works, despite their occasional thous and these, are written in early modern English, which is only about 400 years old. Old English, on the other hand, dates back over 1,000 years, to the time of the Anglo-Saxons in the early medieval period. Old English was spoken in England from roughly the 5th to the 11th century. It was the language of heroes like Beowulf, kings like Alfred the Great, and monks who copied manuscripts by candlelight. To illustrate the difference, let's compare Shakespeare's English, early modern English. To be or not to be, that is the question. Old English, Anglo-Saxon. T-ways God signing. That was a good king. See the difference? Shakespeare's English is familiar, while Old English feels completely alien, but it's not as far removed as you might think. Old English, the foundation of modern English. Surprisingly, much of our everyday vocabulary comes from Old English. While the language's grammar and structure have changed, its simple, direct words remain central to how we communicate. Words from Old English are often short and straightforward. Fight, Old English, Phaeton. Father, Old English, Fader. Truth, Old English, trove. Words from Latin, introduced later via French, are longer and more formal. Conflict, paternal. Veracity. This dual influence, Old English and Latin, gives modern English its unique mix of simplicity and sophistication. Curious quirks of Old English. Old English also explains some of the peculiarities of modern English. Take the phrase old wives' tales, for example. Today, it seems to refer specifically to stories told by married women. But in Old English, the word wife simply meant woman, regardless of marital status. Over time, the word wife narrowed to mean married woman. To compensate, Old English created a new word for woman in the general sense, wifman. Eventually, this evolved into the modern word woman. Unique sounds and letters of Old English. Old English had many sounds that still exist in English today, but they're rare in other languages. For instance, the t sound in words like thin and this. The w sound in water. Interestingly, English is one of the few European languages to retain the w sound. In languages like German, the w has evolved into a v sound, as in Wasser. When the Anglo-Saxons adopted the Latin alphabet, they encountered a problem. Latin didn't have letters for certain sounds in Old English. Their solution was ingenious. They borrowed symbols from the older runic alphabet. For example, the sound we spell th was written as called thorn. This brings us to the quirky phrase, ye old shop. During the printing press era, English printers often used typefaces from the continent, which didn't include the letter. They substituted it with y, which looked similar. But ye was still pronounced the. Old English sentence structure, a fossil in modern English. Old English sentence structure was flexible, relying heavily on word endings, inflections, to convey meaning. While much of this complexity has been lost, traces of it remain in poetic or dramatic forms of modern English. For example, standard, I have never done that. Old English style inversion, never have I done that. This flipping of word order adds a touch of elegance and drama, echoing Old English syntax. Old English poetry, the power of alliteration. One of the most striking features of Old English literature is its use of alliteration, the repetition of consonant sounds at the beginning of words. Unlike modern rhyming poetry, Old English poetry relied on this technique to create rhythm and emphasis. For example, the epic poem Beowulf opens with, "Wait, We Gardena in Geerdegum. Listen. We have heard of the glory of the Speardanes in days of yore. When recited, the alliteration creates a rhythmic, almost musical quality that draws listeners in. Old English and Tolkien's Middle-earth. J.R.R. Tolkien, the author of The Lord of the Rings, was a scholar of Old English and drew heavily from it in his work. The dragon Smaug is reminiscent of the dragon in Beowulf. The phrase, Lord of the Rings, has roots in Old English poetic tradition. Even the names and languages of Middle-earth are inspired by Old English. Tolkien's deep understanding of Old English allowed him to create a world that feels ancient, rich, and real. Why Old English still matters. Why should we care about Old English today? Because it's a key to understanding the history of the English language. It reveals how words, sounds, and meanings evolve over time. It also deepens our appreciation for the richness of our linguistic heritage. Without Old English, there would be no Beowulf, no Lord of the Rings, and no modern English as we know it. Old English lives on. Old English may seem like a long-lost relic, but its influence is everywhere. From the words we speak to the stories we tell, it's a reminder of how deeply our past shapes our present. If you've enjoyed this exploration of Old English, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Let us know in the comments what other languages or historical topics you'd like us to explore next. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and until next time, farewell, or as they might say in Old English, Halatan.